Hey, it's me, MLB. Here's chapter 62 of Serendipity, and this one's titled Detective Yin. No, Philip, we haven't said anything about that. I merely asked you where you went after the party. Did you go straight home? Deku asked calmly. Well, of course, Philip replied, a little flustered. Can anyone vouch for you being home? Deku asked again. Yes, of course, Philip replied, this time with airs of indignation. Okay, Deku said, writing something down. And did you stay home once you went there after the party? Yes, of course, Philip replied, glancing away. How many times do I have to say it? And can anyone vouch for that? Deku asked again calmly. Well, I'm not sure, Philip replied with another flustered expression. Everyone was asleep at that hour. You looked at him, then Deku. Okay, thank you, Philip. We'll be in contact if anything else comes up. Deku went to say something else, but you stopped him quickly, giving Philip one more smile before pulling Deku with you back to the room. I still had questions for him, Deku said as you closed the door to the room. No, you shook your head. We don't need to ask him any more questions. But why? Deku asked with a curious look on his cute freckled face. Because he is my number one suspect, and the more questions that we ask him, the more spooked he's going to be. It's time to assume that he is somehow heavily involved in this, and we need to make sure that he doesn't try and cover any of his tracks too much, you said, well and truly in detective mode. I trust your instinct, Deku replied with a soft smile. Let me call Todoroki to ask if we can stay on here until the case is solved, in case the weather clears up on the island before we can see Philip and or his accomplices behind bars. You nodded and held your fist out for Deku to pump. That's very plus ultra thinking, hero Deku. He grinned and bumped your fist with his, then opened his arms for you to jump into. And I think your attitude is beyond plus ultra, hero Yin, he replied as he buried his head into your neck and kissed you. Deku rang Todoroki to discuss staying on and explained the situation while you rang the manager of the plaza. Yes, hello, he asked in a worried voice when you rang his personal line. Mr. Katara, you asked. It's Mrs. Midoriya. Yes, any news? He asked worriedly. Well, without disclosing too much information, we believe Maya's death wasn't an accident, and we have our suspicions. I need to ask you a few questions, if that's okay. Oh, heavens, he whispered. I am mortified that someone would lose their life in this establishment due to an incident not surrounding unfortunate mishaps. I'm very sorry, you said. That's why Deku and I would like to get to the bottom of this as soon as possible. I agree, the manager replied. So far, the press has not caught wind of this, so I'm very relieved. Okay, first question. Who is in charge of the security guard roster? That would be me, he replied. Oh, you said, looking up at Deku, who was still on the phone and not paying attention to you. What do I do? What do I say now? Should I suspect he's involved? Well, why do you ask? He pushed, the genuine ask making you feel like he genuinely didn't know. May I ask who you had posted for the shift covering the hours from 4 a.m. to 5 a.m.? Of course, let me get my roster, he said, and you heard him get the roster book and sit back down again. I always keep a backlog of the roster in case I need to check back, he said to you, then continued, mumbling to himself. Now, yesterday, who was on yesterday? There was silence and you waited a bit before asking again. Have you found it? You asked. You could hear the rising fear in his voice. Is there anyone rostered on? You asked. I don't know how this happened, he stammered. What is it? You asked. This doesn't look good for me, but no one was rostered on. Is there a reason for that? You asked him. No, I don't know how this happened. I never miss a shift, he replied genuinely. Did anything happen during the time that you were writing the roster? A phone call? Staff member entering and asking a question? You pressed. Now let me think, he said, falling silent. I can't remember, he said sadly. This is terrible. Please don't think of me badly. You could tell he was telling the truth, just by the sound of his voice, and you calmed his fears immediately. No, sir, you're not a suspect, I promise. We live in a world of quirks, so there's a possibility that you could have been quirked to skip rostering someone on in that shift. I do believe that the time period was deliberately neglected so that someone, whoever it was, could get in and out of the room Maya was killed in, undetected by cameras. I'm so very sorry, he said again. If I can be of any more help to you, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Of course, you said. One more question. What is Philip's role here at the plaza? Do you suspect him? The manager asked with surprise. I know Philip quite well, and he and Maya were planning on getting engaged and married very soon. He could never harm her. Oh, please, begging your pardon, you said quickly, covering yourself. No, I ask what his role is so that I can make sure he isn't the next target if the person who did away with Maya is also after him. That was a necessary lie to make sure that Philip wasn't told that he was a suspect by the manager, as it sounded like they were close. Oh, I see, the manager said. Philip has quite a diverse role here. He works closely with myself for hiring, staff handling money, training of staff, general duties, etc. You hummed. I see. Thank you for your time. I'll talk with Deku and we'll continue the investigation, you said when you saw that Deku had gotten off the phone with Todoroki. Okay, the manager replied. Thank you again. Again, if I can be of any help, then please let me know. Oh, yes, I will, you said. Then you said your goodbyes and got off the phone. Philip handles the money, you said to Deku the minute the phone call with the manager ended. The plot thickens. What's Philip's quirk? Deku asked. That's a good question. Let's look it up, you replied, putting a hand out for Deku's phone. And there ends chapter 62. Stay tuned for chapter 63.